Welcome to the well-hydrated JP Reacts channel. We got some, I think, important news in the world today. We learned that Italy has elected first female prime minister, and personally I don't care about the gender of any prime minister, but this is interesting. Her name is Giorgia Meloni. Now, she is on the right, and this is exciting to me at face value, and we'll get to some dark underbelly of the whole thing. But at face value, this is exciting because we see a lot of leftist politicians running countries around the world, and at least I've seen, I don't want to speak for you, I've seen what looks like countries going down the tank, trying to implement leftist ideologies, which is just a flavor of communism. And I'm hungry for change. I want someone on the right elected in the US. And Italy being certainly a significant country in the world, it's pretty exciting to see, okay, they have someone on the right elected. But as you can imagine, the media, here's dark underbelly, the media is smearing her all over the place right off the bat. Hasn't even been in office for a day. I've never heard of this person before, admittedly. I'm not super in the know of world politics, but I wanted to explore a couple things with you. First, we'll watch a short acceptance speech that Prime Minister from Italy, Giorgia Meloni, gave at like 3 a.m. the day she's elected. And then we'll take a look at how is the media smearing her, because it looks not only similar, but the same as how they smear people on the right in the US. So big disclaimer, because I don't have an in-depth history of knowing about her. I've never seen her govern anything. This is not like a blanket endorsement of like, dude, she's awesome. She might be. To me, on the surface, it's exciting, cool. Now someone on the right is running a country. I feel optimistic about that, but I don't know. I mean, really remains to be seen who and how she actually is. But first, let's take a look at her acceptance speech, where I think she says some pretty exciting things that, say it this way, pretty exciting things that don't just represent Italy, but if you watch and listen, you might, if you're in the US, you might say, yeah, that's kind of true here too. Now, because she's obviously America-phobic, she's not speaking English. Like, what is wrong with people? She's in Italy, elected the Italian prime minister. She's not even speaking English? How inconsiderate. So the video will have subtitles.
Potrei farne tante altre di queste domande. A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi. Perché la famiglia è un nemico? Perché la famiglia fa così paura?
That's pretty interesting. Why is the family the enemy? Why is the family so frightening? And we see in this country, the nuclear family has been under attack. We have the BLM organization calling for the destruction of the nuclear family. We see it all over the place. So I love right off the bat, she's questioning, why is the family the enemy?
C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande. Perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità.
And I love that. Our families define us. I don't think they define all of us, but that's our foundation. I do believe the nuclear family, it is the most important thing in our society and our lives. Not to say if you had a screwed up nuclear family, we all do to some extent. Not to say that needs to be the trajectory of your life, but it's pretty influential.
Perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico.
That's pretty interesting too, because everything that defines us is now the enemy. Your biological gender, that's the enemy. You're a man, that's the enemy. You're white, that's the enemy. You're black, well, you agree with conservatives, that's the enemy. You're an American, that's the enemy.
Per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi.
That's interesting. If we make an enemy out of what defines us, then we become perfect slaves. Because we have no identity. If you make an enemy out of what defines you, you're actually making an enemy out of your identity, which means now you're living in a way that you are not allowed to be yourself. And you become a perfect consumer slave. I like where she's going with this.
Consumatori perfetti. E allora è sotto attacco l'identità nazionale, è sotto attacco l'identità religiosa, è sotto attacco l'identità di genere, è sotto attacco l'identità familiare. Non devo potermi definire italiana, cristiana, donna, madre, no. Io devo essere cittadino X, genere X, genitore 1, genitore 2, devo essere un numero. Perché quando sarò solamente un numero, quando non avrò più un'identità, quando non avrò più radici, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria, il consumatore perfetto.
Man, I think she is calling out so much of the propaganda, the woke garbage, the leftist ideology that, in my opinion, looks like it's engineered to hurt us, hurt society. Maybe not because people just want to see us in pain, but because they want to hurt who and how we actually are, so we become what they want us to be. And she's tying it to the people only with financial agendas who want you to be the perfect consumer.
E questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura. Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi questo appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi ha un codice genetico unico e irripetibile. E questo, piaccia o no, ha del sacro. Lo difenderemo Dio, la patria e la famiglia, che fanno tanto schifo a qualcuno.
As you're listening or reading what she's saying, keep in mind what she's saying, because I think it becomes pretty apparent when we take a look at how she's immediately being smeared by media all over the world now. I think it becomes very apparent why she's being smeared. Keep that in mind.
Lo faremo per difendere la nostra libertà, perché noi non saremo mai schiavi e semplici consumatori in balia della speculazione finanziaria. Ecco la nostra missione, ecco perché oggi sono venuta qui. Scriveva Chesterton ormai più di un secolo fa, vediamo se ve lo trovo.
Which, by the way, do you notice the difference between her speaking style and Biden's? It's not the same.
Fuochi verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4. Spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti. Grazie.
Bam! So much about her I don't know. But taking this 2-minute speech, I look at that and say, like, wow, she is calling out a lot of what I call out. She is standing up against a lot of the agenda against human goodness. And she's simultaneously standing for human goodness, our true identities. We're allowed to have gender. We're allowed to be the religion we are. We're allowed to be a man. We're allowed to be a woman. We're allowed to protect and preserve our families. So based on this 2 minutes alone, I love what she stands for. Now, if you take that at face value, you're like, cool, this is what she's about. Then we imagine, like, well, what do leftist media organizations, where she's basically standing up to their corrupt agenda that they propagate, what do they have to say about her? It's gotta be good, right? Let's take a look. So just hitting a couple examples, here's what NPR has to say. The title of this is What You Need to Know About Italy's New Far-Right Leader, Giorgia Meloni. So, far-right leader, that's certainly a smearing term. And then just a few paragraphs down, they start to associate her with fascism. She's a fascist. As many party members have shown to have an affinity for fascism and fascist leaders of the past, that, by the way, I can't prove that she is or isn't a fascist, but what I can prove is our leftist politicians in America, our leftist mainstream media in America and around the world, who else have they been calling fascists? Anybody on the right. Biden in his satanic speech used the term semi-fascists when talking about Republicans who vote for Trump. It's the same playbook. Same playbook they used to smear politicians in the US on the right. They're using against her. And in the same NPR article, it goes down and there's a subheadline, Meloni's opposition to immigration has animated her and her base. So they're doing kind of like, she's against immigration and smearing. What they're discrediting her is she wants Italy to have a secure southern border so illegals from Africa can't come in. Do you know any politicians in the US who happen to be on the right who want us to have a secure southern border? And do you see how the media completely smears them? And by the way, can you see how our open southern border is hurting our country? It's like who I would vote for in the US is so far someone who stands for what she stands for, we're seeing this exact same media playbook that they run against our politicians. Saying the same thing about her. It's not even creative. They need to say something original. It'd be more believable. And then you clicking over to the Atlantic's website, another credible news organization. Here's their headline: "The Return of Fascism in Italy. With Giorgia Meloni's party leading in polls ahead of Sunday's election," so this is a few days ago, "the Italian far right is edging closer to power." Cool, so she won. But the return of fascism in Italy. Now, normally it's like, dude, fascism, that is bad. And indeed it is bad when someone is a fascist. But when someone is standing for freedom, as Meloni in her own words says she stands for, calling her a fascist doesn't mean she's a fascist. It means she's potentially threatening the agenda of the establishment that she's calling out. And then the New York Times, their headline, Giorgia Meloni's win, voting in Italy in breakthrough for Europe's hard right. So they're like, hey, we will be creative. Instead of using the smear term far right, we'll say hard right. So I think it's important to see how the media is trying to smear her for the sake of seeing the playbook so that we can see through it. And it's not a very creative playbook, as I've mentioned. So with that said, taking her words from her speech unto themselves, if she actually has integrity to stand for what she says and follow through with her actions, to me, this is very exciting that she's elected Prime Minister of Italy. Very refreshing that someone on the right is now in power in that country. And quite honestly, I hope the same thing happens here in America in our upcoming elections. And we know the same thing in America already is and will happen in how the media portrays people on the right, far right, dangerous extremist, fascism. They hate immigrants because they want a secure border. All the things. It's so predictable. So, but I'll have an open mind. Just because I like the words she says, it's kind of like she's got to put her money where her mouth is. But where her mouth is, it makes me initially optimistic that she can be a force of good over in Europe. So with that said, that's the world news according to me, as I learn about it, as I literally speak it at you. That's a credible source. But for me, this is really cool to explore and be aware of, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any opinions on what's going on in Italy with the first female prime minister, which I don't care about, but a prime minister who is actually standing up for freedom and calling out those who try to take people's freedom in the name of their financial gain. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Look forward to reading them. In the meantime, stay free.